I really feel our biggest learning from succession is that it can be done amicably. It doesn't have to be this disaster story that you hear so often. Like Nay said, rip the Band-Aid off. With support of some professionals, it can be a fantastic outcome. And from there, it resets the narrative that we start looking forward to our succession and setting ourselves up to transition the farm on to our children. And by putting some money aside now, small amounts yearly out of farm profits, we hope that we can do that really amicably between our children, and it can be a great outcome rolling forward.
Welcome to the Profitable Farmer podcast, where we share stories and tips to help you run a better farming business and create your very own freedom farm. If you're looking to work smarter and not harder in your farm business, welcome. You're in the right place. G'day, I hope this finds you well and navigating the heat wave that is extending across much of Australia. So stay cool. In this episode, I'm delighted to invite another of our business coaches in Rick Morris to interview one of his standout clients, Simon and Naomi Goode. Rick's been with us since FOA's inception. He and Annie are valued members of our alumni, but Rick has really strong agronomy consulting and analytics background and is just a cracking coach with us. Rick, thank you for taking on this episode. Simon and Naomi Goode run Goode Family Farming in Sutherland, Victoria, which is just north of St Arnaud. And when they joined us, they were already operating an established intergenerational farm, producing hay, grain, and self-replacing merinos. They're an incredible story, just the way they've arrived into our community, the level of professionalism they've shown, the diligence and the intent with which they've gone about learning. It's quite incredible. But I guess in this episode, and I'll let Rick share the story, the way they've led their succession process, the way they've got great advisors and their strategic team around them, the way they continually look to simplify and analyse their business model, the way in which they're focusing on off-farm wealth creation early to support their young family. They're just a great example of people pursuing a freedom farm, but getting a lot of the boxes ticked for creating a legacy business in their lifetime that can set up future generations. Congratulations, Simon and Naomi, on all that you're achieving with us, but all that you've achieved in your career so far. The future is bright. Rick, over to you to introduce and interview Simon and Naomi Goode.
Welcome to Simon and Naomi Goode, who farm at St Arnaud in the northern part of Victoria, and part of Profitable Farmer. Hutch has got me on as the guest interviewer. So I really have been looking forward to talking to Simon and Naomi about their story and sharing that with the broader agricultural community. It's a fantastic story. If you're not aware, we work as accountability coaches, work with groups of 5 or 6 families within a mastermind, and Simon and Naomi are coming up to nearing completion of their 3rd year as they work within that group, and it's just such a great example from my perspective, and I'm really enjoying sharing this with the broader community in terms of what they've worked through. So hopefully my intention is to have a bit of fun sharing what I believe is a great example of a business and their owners doing the work. So surrounding themselves with great information, knowing their numbers, being professional. And if people ask us what we do within farm owners, it's simply really helping people be more professional. And these two are a great example of doing that. They've surrounded themselves with great people, and I'm hoping to share a lot of that story today. So for you guys, I'd love to hear a bit of background of how you ended up. I know there's quite a dynasty there at St Arnaud with your family, Simon, but love to hear about how you ended up farming there together. You're in the busiest time of your lives, 4 young kids. And over to you to fill us in on how it's all come together so far.
Thanks, Rick. Certainly honoured and appreciate the opportunity to chat. So, like you said, we farm in the eastern Wimmera area, Sutherland, Gourock, which is north of St Arnaud. I'm the 5th generation on this farm. We have very lucky, very, very fortunate 4 beautiful young kids, 3 boys, 12, 9 and 4, and our little baby girl, Hazel. So she's 8 months old. I grew up here on the farm where we live now, and I've always been passionate about farming. I was always going to be a farmer. We farm broadacre, dry land cropping, and traditionally it's always been a mixed wool and wheat, sheep type of farm. Had a really, really great childhood. Mum and Dad were great parents, great role models. Didn't see a lot of Dad. He worked hard, really hard, long hours. So credit to him and what previous generations have been able to put together. Finished school, went away to ag college, did a bit of header driving up north, worked over in the west for a while, and returned home to the farm in the peak of the millennial drought. Spent the first sort of 3.5 years carting water to the stock, the tanks and troughs, and that would take up 2 to 3 days of my week until the Wimmera Mallee pipeline came through in 2009, 2010. So been there on the farm now for 20 years, and it's a privilege,
Yeah, fantastic. And you, Naomi, you've got a very extensive professional background, so I'd love to hear some of that and how you ended up where you are now.
Thanks, Rick. Great to chat. My upbringing was quite different. So I did grow up in the country, the town of Wimmera, which is not too far away from here. I was raised by 2 teachers. And, I went through school, public school, went off to university, and I studied commerce, majored in accounting, public health and health promotion, and later on went on to complete my master's in dietetics. But my professional career, whilst, a lot of it has been in public health and the public health sector, I've also enjoyed probably 10 years in local government as well.
Yep.
So a diverse portfolio of, leisure, rec, aged care, maternal and child health, community development, business engagement in manager and executive roles in that period. So it has been a busy 10 to 15 years balancing, the four kids, balancing family life and raising all the kids as well as, building a professional career. Yeah,
absolutely. It's so impressive from where we sit to see you work into the current position, and that is CEO, I gather, from just recently. Would you like to explain how that's all come about?
Yeah, sure.
We've undergone a bit of succession, and obviously as time ticks on, you sort of take over the operations, and then with that comes the business of farming. And I stepped into the office quite heavily, really getting to know the numbers and the ins and outs of how the business works. Knew the operations fairly well. And then, Naomi's got a real eye for detail. She's really analytical. It's really a real strength of hers. And I was in the office doing some books and the zero and the basic stuff, and then Naomi'd come in and she'd just see something and pick it up like that. So she's got a great strategic brain, and we just decided that it would be best to have her in that CEO seat, and I can still continue on in the operations as I enjoy, but still spending a bit of time helping with the strategy. And Naomi's been fantastic in that CEO type role over the last few months.
Yeah, so as you tease your org chart out now, what does it look like? You've done a lot of work on your organisational chart. So specifically working Naomi into that CEO role it's been fascinating to watch that process and to see where everyone sits now. So what do you enjoy about that role, Naomi, and all the strengths you bring out of your previous professional career? You obviously really enjoy that space.
I certainly do, and I think skills are transferable from, other sectors, whether it be public health or local government. If you've been in manager and leadership positions, then, you've had that experience with HR, finance management, business management, ability to run feasibilities and have a critical eye around sort of the performance of a business and all its functions. So whilst I don't have the technical understanding of farming, I guess I don't need to. That is Simon's brilliance. That is what he brings very strongly to the business. And I think we need him in that operations manager position in the next little while to ensure that we're running a really solid business. We're out there, with the ability to turn a profit. And then my role can be, well, what do we do with that? What are our short-term, long-term goals? What are our investments in capital infrastructure and improvements in land acquisition, in machinery, and how do we manage all of those moving parts to make so Simon can perform out there in the farm.
Absolutely.
Spoke about professionalism, Rick, and it's definitely Naomi's work in that CEO role that has really upped our professionalism, both to the wider public and within the business with our staff and our suppliers and our relationships we have within the business.
Absolutely. And from our perspective, we really are a dynamic duo in terms of, and we talk a lot about alignment with our members, and you two are just, you seem to be amazing communicators and planning really well for what's coming up in the next short and long term. Yeah, it's a great example for others to follow just in terms of your regular communication. Do you want to discuss how that works for you guys?
Yeah, so we, since joining Farm Owners Academy, we've definitely upped our communication rhythms. It's not just about going to work and working as hard as you can. It's about planning, communicating what our intentions are, both to staff and also through our advisors. That's been a real strength that we've implemented over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and you've mentioned that a few times, Simon, is I guess the conditioning around with you, particularly with your childhood, watching your father, the way he worked and years gone by and what you think as normal behaviour and that subconscious thinking about being the hardest worker, and I've been through that myself. And I know you mentioned that once to me in years gone by, you were guilty if you weren't the last person to turn the lights off in the tractor at seeding time. And that's a massive thing for a lot of people to work through. Just perhaps sometimes letting go of or working out why you're doing what you're doing, letting go of some of the operational tasks and working into the strategy. We'd love to hear about how you've worked through that.
Yeah, definitely, Rick. Like I said, my father was renowned in the district for his work ethic, and he still is. In his early 70s, works hard over at the bowling green and all these sort of places. He really does work hard, and I guess I've been brought up with that, and that's it's a really great life lesson to have work ethic. But I guess time of life also with a young family, I just needed to take stock, make sure I was there to see them as much as I could. Don't get me wrong, there's certainly times, particularly over our hay harvest and our grain harvest, where we're doing some pretty massive hours, but we try and encourage and support and promote our team of guys, some full-time, some casual, and try and work out a balanced sort of roster where we can all get some decent hours, but also be home to see our families and incorporate days off. Yeah, when I was young, I lived in town. We're quite fortunate. The farm's only 10k out the road, so I could commute each day. But there's quite a lot of us young farmers that would live in town. And if I saw one of my mates drive past at 7 o'clock, up past 6, I'd be like, bugger, beating me to work. And I'd go into a bit of a panic and have to fly out the door. And then, like you said, that example of sitting on the tractor or the header at night, I'd be like, well, I'm here till the end. So, and whilst that got work done, it's not good for your long-term health to be pushing that hard. So we've certainly promoted staff and tried to balance out that where we can.
Yeah, and from your perspective, Naomi, how have you seen Simon work through that, and what's been your role in in that process?
Yeah, I've certainly got vivid memories in those early days of his mates driving past and him saying bugger and flying out the door. And I never really understood it. I didn't understand the amount of hours equaled success. I guess I've always had different measures of success. So we talk about that quite a bit together, what is success? And I can certainly these days have a lot more patience with big hours when it's needed, but it's not needed all year round. And I think you balance so much better than when we were younger. I see Simon get so much joy out of playing cricket with the kids outside or having a swim with the kids or, riding on the motorbikes with them. And I think, gosh, that's success, as a family, as a father, seeing the kids light up when they're hanging out with dad is amazing. And the more we do that, I think, the easier it is to step back from those big hours.
It's also really fulfilling to bring on staff and promote them and teach them the way we like things done and professional and attention to detail, and then see them carry on those attributes. And that standard is really rewarding. And I just think you give staff some autonomy, some trust, and they repay you tenfold, and they really become a valued part of our team and a part of our wider family. Yeah.
And you've mentioned that a few times, what success means for you and your values. I guess sharing that for the broader community would be just a perfect way to reflect on how it is you making your decisions in day-to-day farming.
Absolutely.
So what are some of those values that you list, perhaps for our non-FOA the broader community? Where do you list your values, your focus, and define success?
So we have a core focus which revolves around producing high quality commodities in a team environment. We have some company standards that we run all of our staff through, and they're pinned up on the notice boards and whiteboards around the farm, which revolve around basically 5 key statements of safety, attention to detail, balance, so family time is just as or more important as work time, respect and accountability for your role.
Yeah, absolutely. Another issue that I wanted to touch on today and share is just the way you've gathered your strategic team, your core 4, we call it, or your dream team. So that's your team of professionals that can be your accountant, your lawyer, financial planner, your finance broker. And it was really it was fascinating to see how you went through the process of selecting your financial planner. Quite unique.
This really, I need to thank you, Rick, for the accountability and the reminder that we needed this Big 4 advisory team around us. And through our coaching calls and our masterminds, I guess that accountability that we went forth and we created that. We've been lucky that we've had an accountant partner with us for a very long time. The principal accountant and our senior accountant are both farmers. So they have a very strong understanding of farming and the ag sector, but have mainly worked with us on compliance and tax planning. Had a strong legal team. We've worked with the local legal team for a really long time. So I guess for us, what was missing from our Big 4 team was the mortgage broker and the financial planning team. I guess from our other advisors, we sought out recommendations. Through our succession planner, we met the mortgage broking team. They came on board a couple of years ago, and they've really challenged the way that we've looked at our finance and our lending. They tendered out our finance, and we did end up changing banks. We're really pleased with the relationship we have with our mortgage broking team and our banking team.
Yeah.
So that has been a really positive move, and it has saved us a lot of money. And then the last of the Big 4 was the financial advisory team. So we went back out to our advisors. We asked for recommendations again, and we shortlisted to 3, and then we went through an interview process. So we jumped online with 3 different companies, and we spoke to them. They presented, how they go about their work. They got to know us and make some suggestions on how we could work together. And that process, we found our team. We appointed them last year, and end of last year we hosted all our advisors on farm, and they presented the financial strategy back to all of us. So
it's one of the most powerful things of having that core four is those guys being able to communicate to each other instead of us playing Chinese whispers and being that link in between them. They all know each other now and they communicate regularly on our behalf and make some really great decisions for our long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess there's times where if you can have them on a Zoom all together, or I think you've had them in person all together, haven't you, there at times, which, as you say, short circuits a lot of roundabouts. So if you're anything like me, you can get the translation a little bit muddled up from one professional to another, and it takes a lot of time by the time you're back and forth and round and round. But isn't it so powerful to have them all in the same room, so to speak?
Absolutely. And it's quite stressful being that link in between them, like you say, with the terminology and getting it spot on. So it's a real master stroke, I believe, that core four and getting them in the one room.
Yeah, so leading on from that, what does it look like going forward in terms of setting up off-farm investments, or what's the focus and what's the real strength that your financial plan is going to bring you going forward, do you think?
If we backtrack a little, Rick, we were in a really good position when we met sort of 17 years ago. We'd both taken advantage of the first home buyers scheme. So we had bought our own residential properties back then. So I guess over time, what we then experienced was, some comfort in lending, comfort in repaying that lending. We experienced capital growth and equity. So it gave us some confidence in, I guess, the off-farm investing, many years ago. Whilst we didn't have the farm within our control until recent years, we focused on investments. For the last 7 to 8 years, we've invested in residential property, and we built that up to 3 different properties that were sitting in different markets in Victoria, short-term accommodation, and worked with long-term rental as well. And we've used both over those years. Yeah. So that's sort of given us a kick start. Now we run the business here. I guess our focus now will turn to, what does our exit from the business look like, and what will we need to retire? What are some of the longer term goals for the farming business, and how can we use investments to support that? So the financial planning team have created various corporate structures for us, a new trust, looking at our companies, how we distribute profits, how we invest for both on-farm and off-farm, and also have layered in a component of looking at what could be set up for our children. And for us, that's, an investment fund that they'll inherit when they turn 21, which really lights us up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And before you know it, they'll be there. How old's your eldest now?
He's just turned 12, so it's not long at all.
No, 10 years will fly, and then they'll be, before you know it, finish school, perhaps some education and travelling and working out what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And so how was that? Well, let's go back to the previous generation and succession from your family, Simon, commentary around that, and perhaps that'll lead us into the business model that you've simplified. And that's a great story in itself.
Yeah, so as most the younger generation come home to the farm in time, you work alongside your parents in that family business, and for the first few years you're very much learning off your parents and off the older generation or off staff members that are involved in the business. And then after a few years, you sort of get to, fortunately, Dad gave me some responsibility from a young age, which I am grateful for. So you start to bring in some of your own ideas into the business, and then you become responsible for the outcomes of those ideas that you've implemented. And after a few more years, you end up taking control of the operation. So there's some real pillars to learning the basics of how the farm operates. And as Dad got older, he was getting more tired. His body was starting to let him down a bit, and he would have gone through multiple stage 3 or 4 burnout cycles. So it came to a point where I was in my mid-30s, I had a young family. I was running the day-to-day operations of the farm and helping, certainly taking a lead role in running the business with mum and dad. I was working really hard and really trying to drive productivity. At this stage in life, our other friends within our network were starting to become quite a topic of succession, and where are you heading with a young family? You don't want to do all that work and then have no sort of guarantee as to where it's going to lead you in life.
Yeah.
So we just wanted some assurance as to where we were going to end up. So I brought up succession just in general conversation with mum and dad. But yeah, sort of struggled to get traction, which is fair enough. It's a big stepping stone. And in mum and dad's defence, yeah, it was stuck. It's hard to know where to start. Dad's succession was, the farm was split 7 ways. So he really started on the back foot with having the farm carved up and not a lot of farm wealth. So we knew we wanted to avoid that, but we didn't know how.
Yeah.
A big mental challenge for Dad, particularly. I guess someone had to be the bus driver of this succession, and I put my hand up to do that. But I really needed to find some common ground to get the ball rolling. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Kate Burke and the work she does, and she promotes succession really actively. And Kate used to be our agronomist when she was in the Wimmera, working alongside and under John Stutchbury. So I knew that Dad had a lot of respect for Kate as well. So I just said to Dad one day when we were chatting, how about you just reach out to Kate? She's doing a lot of work around the promotion of succession, and just have a chat. And yeah, Dad did, and Kate threw up some really great recommendations, and we went through a similar process where I left it up to mum and dad to pick and choose who they thought would be the best fit for our business. The facilitator was fantastic. He had aimed for a 2-year process. It ended up being 4. There were some really hard conversations in that, but that's the way succession goes. It's been a really fantastic outcome for everyone involved. Mum and dad, they can now exit the business, and they have. For my siblings, they've got some money up front, and everyone's sort of, we can still have Christmas together. We actually signed our deed of family arrangement, and then we all went on a holiday to Phillip Island for a week. So it was a really fantastic outcome.
Well, that's sensational. Well done.
And it allowed for a full asset transfer to happen, and for us to really get some security around where we're heading as a family and a business for the next decade. We feel that 40 is our decade where we can really push ahead, and we've got some security around that now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so powerful. And what would you say, Naomi, is the big learnings for those that are going through that process now?
Yeah, I think it's rip the Band-Aid off and get the conversation started. There's so many assumptions that can be built in those silent moments and those years of where the conversation perhaps hasn't happened. There can be assumptions around the business, the performance, about assets, where they may land. And I think, if you can approach it professionally, find a facilitator that, you can build some trust with. They'll lead you through these tough conversations, and the tough conversations that need to happen is where the gold is. Expectations, goals, dreams, it all comes out in the process, and it can be a really exciting time for a whole family, on farm and off farm, to understand what people want to achieve in their life, and then find those vehicles to make that happen or support that process. So I would just encourage people to find that facilitator and start the process.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice and a great story. And from you, Simon, what would be the biggest learnings for you to share with others?
I really feel our biggest learning from succession is that it can be done amicably. It doesn't have to be this disaster story that you hear so often. Like Nay said, rip the Band-Aid off. With support of some professionals, it can be a fantastic outcome. And from there, it resets the narrative that we start looking forward to our succession and setting ourselves up to transition the farm on to our children. And by putting some money aside now, small amounts yearly out of farm profits, we hope that we can do that really amicably between our children, and it can be a great outcome rolling forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So powerful. And I'd love to also talk about the process you work through to simplify the business model. I know your father was quite the sheep man, and it's a fascinating story, and one that a lot of people work through in terms of perhaps carrying the legacy from the previous generation in, and then working out what's going to work for you in your lives. And it's such a tough thing to work through, but it's fascinating how you've worked through it. You had the numbers to back your decisions, and I'd love to hear the story or share it with everyone else.
Yeah, so I spoke earlier on about returning home to the farm and in the millennial drought and spending 2 to 3 days a week carting water. Gave me a lot of think time over the generations. Yeah, we've been a true mixed farm. We've sort of grown all the crops: wheat, lentils, canola, beans, barley, and then merino wool sheep, running up to 2,000 ewes at times. One of the things that I took away from Ag College was I really enjoyed and really got stuck into the paddock level gross margin. So we have over 20 years of computerized data, and all of those machinery passes are accounted for on contract rates to hopefully take into account the cost of ownership. There's no doubt that when I returned home to the farm, it was tough times, and a low cost sheep, fallow, barley type of enterprise mix really carried us through those tough times in a low cost, low risk, low profit style of environment. I guess my passion has been the cropping and the hay, and hay just started to sneak into the farm more and more until a point that it became a genuine second enterprise for our business, and it worked so well with our grain growing systems. So in the end, we were essentially running 5 enterprises with our grain, our hay, our sheep, and we store all our grain and hay on farm, and then we transport that. We cut most of our grain locally, but hay can go anywhere up the East Coast, wherever it's required. So we were essentially losing scale within our livestock enterprise. And it made it really hard to become a low-cost producer of wool and meat, red meat.
Yeah.
Our farm is probably as close to 100% arable as you would find, was another consideration. And also coming from these older, true-to-type merino ewes, they had fantastic wool, but their joining and their scanning rates were also fantastic, but their mothering percentages were really ordinary. We tried a lot of different changes and tweaks to our system to improve that. We just couldn't get the lambs to the cradle.
Yeah.
It was becoming obvious that the sheep were no longer stacking up in our business, and we just really needed some solid evidence and some solid numbers to prove that. My dad's body, he's been a passionate sheep and wool man. Like you said, he was a shearer in his younger day, and his body wasn't allowing him to work with him anymore, and he was becoming quite frustrated at watching us and other members of the team, possibly with some attention to detail around some of those sheep issues.
Yeah.
Our first 2 benchmarks were an absolute massacre on the sheep side. You know, we had negative 3 and 4% return on assets on the livestock enterprises. And in both of our debriefs with Tim, he asked the question, why do you run these sheep? They were a distraction, and they were a lot of mental load for the scale that we had. So the decision was made with those numbers in mind that we would exit our ewes. But the market was pretty shot 2 years ago when we sort of made this call. And I didn't want to just give them away, like out of respect to the work that Dad and previous generations, but mainly Dad have put into those ewes. He was quite proud of them. So we pushed through another 12 to 18 months and eventually sold all our ewes scanned in lamb earlier on last year in June. Certainly wasn't top of the market, but a substantial increase on what they had been 12 months prior to that. And I'm certainly not here to bash the sheep, because we've seen some fantastic results within Farm Owners Academy of scale, well-run livestock enterprises that are achieving some sensational results.
Yeah.
That's not something we were able to achieve. So I guess since that enterprise has gone, I think I'm calmer. I'm probably more relaxed. I've had a really fantastic January, spending time, some holidays, not having to worry about sheep that are on trough water or the risk of fire. And our cropping enterprises are probably there's no longer the trade-off between the two. And we still have an opening for sheep if and when the opportunity arises. When there's an opportunity to trade sheep or trade lamb through a feedlot, then we'll certainly be open to that opportunity, but just not running them 12 months of the year.
Absolutely, and you really summarised that well. A lot of the time it's finding something you enjoy doing it well, and surrounding yourself with great technical support, and you've certainly done that with your cropping. Family values that come into it, it's a difficult process to work through. What's your reflection on the whole process, Naomi, watching the business exit and just simplify a little bit?
Yeah, it's something that Simon had been speaking about for many, many years. Of course, when the sheep were out, gates were left open, or, we get that phone call that we've got sheep on the road. It was always a Sunday, so it really it drove me a little bit mad. But like Simon says, it's the benchmarking and those figures that gave us confidence in the decision. And we could see the profits in the cropping and the hay versus the sheep. And then we balanced up all of that physical and mental load that came with, 3 big enterprises. Reducing it down to the 2 in cropping and hay has really taken the pressure off. Yeah, I can see that in Simon, in his levels of stress. Like he said, we've had just the most wonderful summer break, and we haven't been able to do that before.
Oh, that's sensational. And I guess sometimes there's a bit of guilt involved. You summed it up really well, Simon, but just perhaps tease that out a little bit more for our listeners in terms of working through the process of giving up what was your father's passion.
Yeah, that was something that I really struggled with for a number of years, and also, just honouring what they've contributed to the farm and his passion. But I think in the end, Dad was quite happy to see that level of work and just mental load removed. We ran the figures past Dad, and in the end, it wasn't just my decision; it was a joint decision. So it's been a great outcome, and like I said, we both still want to see some sheep here at times. We feel we can make a similar margin, or hopefully a better margin, just by trading them in when the market fits. And it doesn't fit like now. We've had a bit of a mental break. It's been fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just as we start wrapping up, was there anything else you wanted to share to the listeners?
I think for me, it's the importance of aligning your team, and the alignment that Nay and I have is something really special and something I'm really proud of. That's what's going to drive farm businesses forward, is that professional approach and looking after your staff, being a great employer. And also, every business has their challenges. It doesn't matter whether you're a first generation or a fifth generation. Everyone's got their challenges and they're working through them together, and there's that communication rhythm, and that alignment really helps to keep these businesses running and striving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, Naomi?
I think our mindset around the success on the farm is quite different to where we started. I think, we're both very driven individuals, and together, I guess, we had confidence that we could grow the farm, could get bigger, more land, grow was success. And I think working through the process with you and the rest of our coaching team has been wonderful in the fact that it's enabled us to really define, what we want out of the business, what success can be. It might not be excessive growth. We've got some, goals over the next 10 years that's around, perhaps acquiring some of the land that we lease of family members that still own land, and maybe a big jump in, land ownership or the scale might happen when the kids come on board. And that would be really exciting, and it's okay for the moment not to chase that. for the next 10 years, really enjoy our family, enjoy what we can do with the business. And if we wish to scale to another level, we could do that with the kids and we could cheer them on.
Oh,
and what's worked for us
powerful.
might be completely different for the kids too. So exciting what they might want to do with the business. So.
Oh, yeah, that's such a good reflection and realisation of where it is you're up to with life and business. And yeah, been a privilege to work with you. The attitude, the opportunities will just keep on coming. I did want to wrap up with what helps you feel good, and noting that it's G-rated version today for our listeners. What helps you feel good?
For both of us, exercise. Yeah, we really, Nate's own gyms, ran gyms. He's really brought fitness into the house. We're very fortunate that we've got a very active, vibrant gym in St. Arnaud, our local town. So I really enjoy getting in there and chatting to people of all different walks of life and doing some exercise. Keeps me feeling good. Spending time with the kids and the family, that's number one. You just can't beat that for feeling good. Being in control is a great feeling. That's certainly something that we've gained more clarity over the last certainly 2 years of just feeling more in control of our life, not just on the hamster wheel. And then just a bit of downtime with friends and family, and I play a little bit of campfire guitar. Very basic.
Can't wait to hear that. Oh, that's fantastic. And Naomi, what helps you feel good?
Well, I think Simon summarised it beautifully. Certainly exercise and movement, fresh air, spending time outside with the kids, prioritised investing in things outdoors. So we've got a tennis court. We spend almost every day out there playing cricket, footy, soccer with the kids. It makes us feel good. It makes the kids feel good. I'm a slight introvert, so I do need a little bit of time to myself, and I usually grab that first thing in the morning. I get up before everyone else and have my cuppa, and I've got a little bit of space before it's all on when everyone gets up.
What does the morning routine look like in that quiet time for you?
It's pretty basic. It's just a cuppa. Sometimes, I just sit for a minute. Sometimes I've got a she shed that's got some exercise equipment, so I'll take myself out there.
I haven't heard of that before, the she shed.
She shed, yeah. And I just find a little bit of time to myself, and then back into the daily routines.
Into the kids, and they're all back to school. You are back into the routine very shortly. So it's been a great chat. Thanks very much, and I'm sure you'd be willing to be mentors for anyone that would reach out and contact you through any of those things you've worked through in your time. You'd be great mentors for anyone that needs that support. So thanks for your time, and we'll wrap it up. Thanks Simon and Naomi, and hope you have a great year.
Absolutely, Rick, and thanks for your support over the last 2.5 years. You've been a great coach, and the whole FOA community is just a fantastic thing to be a part of. So thanks for your help and guidance.
Thank you.
And there you have it, folks. A wonderful interview. Thank you, Rick. So interesting, Rick, to see the connection that you formed with Simon and Naomi, the level of respect you have for them. But what a great story. I just want to congratulate you both again for your professionalism, for your intent, for your rigour with how you go about really making sure that every post's a winner on your farm, and how you're proactively setting up your off-farm wealth creation for future generations. There's so many insights in there for our listeners. To all of you, just encourage you to take 2 or 3 things away from this episode that you can apply back to your farm and your business and your family. But again, Simon and Naomi, we're proud to have you part of the FOA community, and congratulations. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Profitable Farmer podcast by Farm Owners Academy. If you're new to this show, be sure to follow us. If you've been a long-time listener, let your friends know about us, or come continue the conversation in the Profitable Farmer Facebook group. All the best as you grow your business and create your freedom farm. Until next time, keep being incredible.